The 27th for the 11th, 2025. The time is 22 minutes past 8. And as always, that means one thing, that there are very many F1 centric threads at which we need to pull. Christian Horner coming back potentially. We'll talk about it, and we've got evidence, exhibit A, B, C and D. So too, we'll talk about papaya rules over at McLaren. Behave yourself. What are we doing? It's going to get techier than techie things. Albon, George Russell, adverts, Terminator, Maximilian Verstappen, Qatar. The humanity. It will get techier than techie things. Shall we begin? Are we quiet? Well, quiet therefore at the back. In the first instance, this is the times, the picks to click that you guys need to know. Qatar timetable. I will not go through it again. If you need to pause, then that's what you better get to doing. In the second instance, Fernando Alonso, leading up to the Qatar Grand Prix weekend, round 23, I said the following things. Of course, we have this conversation under the aegis of who will be Aston Martin team principal in 2026. Roll the clip.
Adrian in the team attracts talent. That's for sure. You know, everyone will like to work with Adrian Newey and learn from him and all this kind of stuff. So being a team principal, I'm sure we will have even more people dreaming of joining the team. So that's good news for us.
Thank you.
Could one of those people include Christian Horner, given that he could fill in all the stuff as being a team principal that Adrian doesn't want to do, if Adrian doesn't want to do it?
I don't know. I don't think, that's a question for me at the moment. But I think with Adrian taking the role now, Andy taking different responsibilities as well, and he's very capable of doing good things. Lawrence, great leader, determined, maximum commitment always, things like that. I don't think that we need any more people in the management, but obviously it's not my decision.
Sure.
Yeah, you bet your bottom dollar, Fernando Alonso, it's not your decision. I recall, chat, when they pitched at Fernando Alonso by dint of a cheeky quiz with his mate Pedro de la Rosa whether Adrian Newey would be joining. Then he couldn't keep a straight face. Now he's desperately trying to. Here's what I think, chat. I think Christian Horner is on his way over to Aston Martin. Here's how you know. Because there are a gazillion different articles today, multiple sources talking about Lawrence Stroll is prepared to pay a king's ransom for Christian Horner, that he's been chasing him for as near as makes no difference 7 years, just like John Elkann over at Stellantis and Ferrari. Newey showed Christian Horner around the factory earlier this year, and that's got to count for something, surely. They buried the hatchet, did Newey and Horner, over at an Oasis reunion tour. Don't hate it, chat. And again, why is that important? Because many people said, aficionados and F1 numpties alike, that Adrian Newey left the Bulls that are red in the first instance because he didn't like what Christian Horner was doing, that this was no longer Oracle Red Bull Racing, but it had become Christian Horner Bull Racing. It was misconduct, allegation gate, coercive behaviour, that Christian Horner wanted to be Toto, the boy who cried wolf, a team principal and CEO come shareholder, and nobody wanted that. Not the Austrians, not Charlie Mavija, and not least Adrian Newey. Craig Slater's come out and said something which I think is quite important, because Craig Slater and Christian Horner are like this. You see the way they interact when they're on camera. And I think Slater and Sky Sports F1, therefore, have the inside line. He said that potentially Adrian Newey being appointed a team principal is a temporary measure, a placeholder per se. Here's what I think, chat. I don't think Adrian Newey will be team principal for long, because he doesn't want to be a team principal. This is strategic GP. This is them doing something. This is a misdirection type stuff. I think they wanted Andy Cowell in a different role, and this is one way to package it. How do you know? Well, because Christian Horner gave an interview on the High Performance podcast. Link will be in the description, during which he said the following. Roll the clip.
An environment.
Ipso facto, Adrian Newey doesn't want to be a team principal. He just wants to design cars. Indeed, as far as the aerodynamic pursuit is concerned, he's a dog merely chasing cars, just like the Joker in The Dark Knight. That's all that he wants to do. Christian Horner makes the point more succinctly and eloquently than I ever could. And why? Who would know better than Christian Horner? He spent nearly a gazillion years, 20 to be precise, with Adrian Newey over there at the balls that are red. Adrian Newey doesn't want to be in front of the bloody press and media, answering questions, managing people. That's not his forte. Never has been his strength. Never will be. Leave that to, I don't know, a Christian Horner, let's say. I agree with the accredited media and the articles that say that in all probability, Christian Horner will at some point in 2026 be over there at Aston Martin. Don't believe me? Well, Lawrence Stroll has told you a couple different things as well, dropped you some gems and clues. At the livery launch a couple of years ago, Lawrence Stroll says, when I get passionate about things, I win. Ergo, £50 million worth of spend on a wind tunnel, a market leading wind tunnel. Ergo, 350 million Great British pounds sterling on a factory. So what makes you think that Lawrence Stroll won't roll out the red carpet and pay a king's ransom for Christian Horner? Nothing, chat. Oh, and by the way, I need to show you this. Listen, it's important that I prep this. All F1 promos are created equally, but some are created more equal than others. Of late, there's been a couple of different ones. You remember the wanted dead or alive thing with Max Verstappen hunting down both of the papaya-coloured Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. However, I will see you that one. And with this one, raise you something different. This is God tier. This is hype. F1 needs to learn something, especially if Liam Parker is right. He says that no longer is F1 a sport. It is content, entertainment. More of this, therefore. Leave us hyped. Let us watch something going into round 23, the dying embers, the championship rounds of the 2025 season, that makes us feel that this is much must-watch TV going into Thanksgiving weekend. Roll the clip. Oh, the humanity, chat. Could I have more goosebumps on my body watching that? Terminator settings. Unbelievable. 4 soon-to-be 5-time champion Maximilian Verstappen. Listen, how very dare they inject that into my veins? Sky Sports F1 need to be watching and taking notes. That's what you're meant to feel like going into the final 2 Grand Prix of the 2025 season. God tier from Canal Plus there, and I love that. Listen, I know sometimes content and Drive to Survive isn't for us dry gold grey grizzled F1 veterans and all that, but that, ladies and gentlemen, inject it into my veins. How do you like yourselves some F1? Oh, and by the way, no, Canal Plus, not an English channel, French. That there is, absolutely got Maximilian Verstappen to thank for reigniting, lighting a flame up the AWS of the 2025 Drivers' Championship. Oh, and by the way, speaking of lighting a flame up to us of something, Lando Norris was asked a couple of different questions about winning the championship. Lest we forget, his lead as of the time of writing, 24 points going into the 23rd race of the season. All Lando Norris needs to do is finish on Sunday 2 points ahead of Oscar Piastri and Maximilian Verstappen to win himself a World Drivers' Championship for the first time. Now, here's where it gets techie, chap. Going to have a serious conversation, a big boy one. Is Lando Norris worthy? There are a gazillion F1 fans who are looking at this and like, no chance. He's privileged. He's won his championship at the altar of said privilege, and of course a god tier MCL 3.9. There is a fast car privilege, therefore. So too, when you look at it, you've got to remember Monza, and so too you've got to remember Australia. You've got to remember the times when Lando benefited from the likes of Zach Brown and Andrea Stella putting their thumb, they're not insubstantial weight on the competitive landscape scales. This is chaos, Jack. We'll get to that in a second because Max Verstappen has chimed in, hasn't he? But let me show you what Lando Norris said when asked, would you like to win yourself a championship at a driver's variety over the course of this weekend as soon as possible? Lando Norris responded thus.
And I'm going to say this could be championship weekend for you, Lando Norris. You could win the 2025 Formula One World Championship this weekend. Just score 2 more points. Are you thinking about that? Are you ready? Do you want to do it now rather than Abu Dhabi? Do you want to do it as soon as possible? You want to happy to let it go to Abu Dhabi? You want to? And is the car going to be a bit slower because they have to jack the car up just for safety reasons?
No, in fact, we'll probably be quicker. The fact we have to put it up because I won't have to back off everywhere. So
Good.
So Lando Norris 1.0, aka Dustin of Stranger Thing, is doing his best to be stoic because he understands that there's doable competitive advantage in that. He wants to be in flow state, in the present, in the moment, because that's how he'll extract the best out of himself over the course of this race weekend. However, as soon as he's asked the question, he beams, he smiles, he can't help but indulge. This is his fantasy. He's lived all of his life, dreamed about this moment, and it's very nearly in his hands, ladies and gentlemen. But here's the exam question for which we will get answers over the course of the Qatar Grand Prix race weekend. Does Lando Norris have the minerals to avoid, as he's done so many times in the past, most recently at the Las Vegas Grand Prix, going into turn 1 at the altar of poor defensive posture, failing to get onto the geometric racing line, spending too long looking in his mirrors at where Maximilian Verstappen was, as versus focusing on where he needs to be on track? Does this chap yet again seize defeat from the jaws of victory? Ted Kravitz asked the follow-up question. Are you going to have to get a bit conservative with your ride heights? Are you going to have to undo for the mistakes of the Las Vegas Grand Prix? To which Lando Norris quips, well, you know what? I think we might be quicker if we raise the ride height. Don't be silly. You couldn't be so silly, Lando Norris. You must be saying that with your tongue very firmly in cheek. Lest we forget, this is the ground effect era, and these cars gain 1000% of their downforce under the aegis of running the car super low and stable, by the way, relative to the tarmac. What are you talking about, Lando Norris? Now, of course, he's joking there. There's no way, but there's been a lot made of McLaren and whether they will need to get conservative. What they can't afford to do is undergo another disqualification, because then going into the final round at Abu Dhabi, it will get techier than techie things. No, 100% run. He's joking. He's saying that sarcastically, isn't he? Let's run it high and then we'll, but no, they won't run it high. They can't afford to. But here's the problem, chat. Loads of F1 aficionados and accredited media sources have been talking about what's going on with that car. Lest we forget, McLaren made the decision to divest out of 2.5 as far as developing and upgrading for its MCL 3.9 design philosophy races ago, nearly mid-season. But yet and still, they've been getting quicker and quicker, all the while Red Bull have been bringing proper upgrade. So how, therefore, let's try and answer the exam question. How, therefore, have McLaren's Son's upgrades been keeping up with the balls that are red? This makes no sense, except for the fact that they've been super marginal for the longest time as far as their ride heights. Lest we forget, excessive plank wear looks something like this. 10mm is the starting thickness. If it is any less than 9mm come the end of the race, disqualification instantly. This is binary. There is no shades of grey as far as this rule and reg set is concerned. McLaren, therefore, as recently as Brazil, have been running the car super low with a view to extract every millimetre, every sinew of downforce out of the car, understanding that they've got a fire-breathing dragon in Maximilian Verstappen for which they need to slay. This is Jonathan Noble talking over at Autosport. That's what he said. His words, not mine. So what do you think they're going to do? Of course they're going to run it low. They need to run it low, lest they wish Maximilian Verstappen to run away with this yet again. We're competing here for championships of the drivers' variety. Oh, and by the way, Maximilian Verstappen, GOAT, for some say soon to be 5-time champion. Well, he's chimed in on this excessive plank wear, saying that he understood by dint of the images, the sparks up the back of Lando and Oscar Piastri's car, that even before he got onto the plane, that he suspected, he was told that potentially something would happen as far as disqualification. Both McLarens. Roll the clip.
How did you react to the news of their disqualification? Have you understood something during the race already?
No, I mean, after the race, you look back at footage and you see them sparking maybe a little bit more than others. But honestly, these kind of things are so hard to get right. Of course, everyone will always try to push it to the limit, and yeah, I guess sometimes you can go over that limit. But from our side, we were just very happy with the win. You know, for us that was already a really good result in Vegas, and yeah, now 2 races to go. Of course, the gap got a bit smaller, and from a team's perspective, from our side, we'll just try to do everything we can, you know, to try and stay in that fight till the end.
Mate, it's going to get techier than techie things. 2 races to go, everything to play for. And again, people have been talking about Maximilian Verstappen, not least of whom Sebastian Vettel, saying that Max Verstappen's gift isn't in his speed, nor is it in his racecraft, that it's all in here. It's all mental. And as compared to Lando Norris, surely that's where the dichotomy exists, that Maximilian Verstappen is Fort Knox as far as his mental aptitude and fortitude, his ability to focus in the race on a gazillion different things, leverage the extra bandwidth that he seems to drive with, as near as makes no difference every single Grand Prix. Whereas Lando Norris, as soon as he's got to juggle more than one ball, spin more than one automotive pugilistic plate, as he needed to going into turn 1 at Las Vegas, he struggles with it. Mr. Short on attention span, lest we forget Singapore, a gazillion miles down the road, was Lando Norris. All he needed to do was keep it on the black stuff to maintain the lead position and obtain 25 points that race weekend. And as near as makes no difference, on 2 occasions then Lando Norris nearly yeeted it into the back. Excuse me, Lando Norris 1.0, aka Dustin from Stranger Things. So the question that we ask ourselves going into this race weekend, which one of the iterations of Lando will turn up? Will it be Lando Norris 1.0, the chap that we saw at Singapore, at Canada? Or will it be Lando Norris 2.0, the chap that put in the first sub 70-second lap at Monaco, the chap that nailed the start into turn 1 at the Mexican Grand Prix only a couple race weekends ago? Here is the dichotomy. Pick your poison. It depends, because if Lando 2.0 rocks up Houston, we have a problem. He'll manage for everything. But if Lando 1.0 rocks up, the dude who's tinkering with brake bias, as an example, off the start, then it might get techier than techie things. Max Verstappen. I'm saying here, you're a legend. I appreciate you, Nav. You guys are a legend. Let me say this again for the avoidance of that. This is a conversation, a fan channel. It can't be Sky Sports F1. Here's me. Pay me my money and you guys stay over there. This has got to be a cheeky back and forth. Oh, and by the way, Alex Albon has chimed in on something different, a side mission. If we're talking about 2026, all of Middle England, the God tier F1 minds, engineers, designers, aerodynamicists, etc., they've all said that Mercedes potentially have the whip hand going into 2026, that they will build the quickest car. Why? Well, a couple of different reasons. 2014 wasn't that long ago. Turbo hybrid settings. That's how they nailed it then, and went on to win 8 Constructors' Championships back to back to back. There is a very similar feeling around Braxley and Brixworth, says James Allison, and he would know because he was around then in 2014 alongside the one that they call Andy Cowell. He was one of those who heralded in the era of dominance, one of the biggest, greatest, longest eras of dominance in F1 history. 8 constructors again, back to back to back. Now, many have speculated that Mercedes are going to plate again, Sam, that they've got the sexy sustainable fuel Petronas. They specialise in this, that they will build themselves another god tier power unit, and as soon as we usher in 2026 in a few months time, that they will be purple set as the quickest car on the grid. Well, Alex Albon has something to say about that. He opines on the Mercedes power unit. Thus, roll the clip.
That's it. I think we can rely on the Mercedes PU to be fairly strong.
and but at the same time, there's a lot of Mercedes PU powered cars, so we still need to beat the others as well.
You know, your team has a lot of heritage.
I think Alex Albon's trying to tell us something here. I think he's trying to tell us something. Does he know more than anybody? No, I don't think he does. Not than the engineers that are talking and the F1 aficionados. But he's providing... When in F1 has there been flame without smoke? I think this is... I don't think this is coincidence, chat. And I don't think we'd be going too far by connecting some dots. This isn't causation apophony that we're doing here. If Alex Albon is telling us that Mercedes power unit will be good, if not market leading, then you better believe him. Oh, and by the way, George Russell has chimed in, courtesy of our mates over at The Race, God tier F1 publication. George Russell has chimed in and he's been speaking of the guidelines. Lest we forget, we operate in an F1 governed by the FIA, where the sporting enterprise, the franchise that is F1, $25 billion market cap as at the last count, that it's not fit for purpose, is it? The FIA is a regulatory body, don't know what they're doing. They can't institute for the guidelines, nor can they rule the sport in a way that even looks like it's consistent. They've been bottle jobs for the longest time. Mohammed bin Salem doesn't know what he's doing, doesn't know how to behave himself in front of the public eye. And this isn't good enough. But again, I said on a gazillion occasions, and I will repeat again for the avoidance of that. All of that gubbins would fade to black if they were just Bill Belichick's settings doing their job. And George Russell has chimed in and said, you know what, I think consistent stewarding from individuals who've got that racing experience, who can see an incident for what it is where we will get the most consistent penalties for a given incident. Now, Johnny Herbert and Damon Hill chimed in on this, didn't they? And they said, what's going on? The drivers always moan about the guidelines, but they're the one who ask for the guidelines in the first place. They have input into these. So what's going on here? It's nonsense. There are 1,000 things for which they need to fix. The transponders, again, when they don't work, nobody can even eye test a cheeky full stop. What are we doing? What happens to scenario panning? Where is the fail safe? Why isn't this system robust, sufficiently robust to make it toggle proof? Again, in $1 billion sport, 24.5 US dollars, billion US dollars is how much the market capitalization of F1 is on the Nasdaq stock exchange. And you're telling me you can't afford to throw a couple $100,000 at some full-time employee. What are we doing? This makes no sense. Chat, I desperately don't want to go scorched earth. It's only Thursday. We've got a whole race weekend in front of us. But the FIA leave me no choice. Just when I thought I was out, they bring me back in. This is chaos. Chat, sort it out, stewards. Sort it out, the FIA. I know financial resource. I get it. Sometimes it's heat or eat and inflationary and interest is going. I get it. But you're getting paid 100 million every single year, FIA. You mean to tell me that you can't afford to pay some former drivers a proper salary so that they can follow the F1 circus around the world as they should do, as they need to, if indeed they're going to do a good job? What are we doing here, chap? There is no sport in the world that doesn't have a set of full-time umpires apart from the $24 billion one that we call F1. But I digress. Oh, forgive me, Lord, for I know not what I do. Let me show you this. This is important, chat. What are Red Bull up to here? This just feels like brinksmanship. Why on their front nose, without front nose cone, is there a thing that says it's the same as last week? What are we doing here? This feels like classic Christian Horner brinksmanship, right? Skullduggery. What are they referring to? Big mouth George again. My prediction, Max and Lando will make contact. Both DNF. Oscar takes the championship. Oh, the humanity, surely not. Edgar, you're a legend. Welcome, mate. And get yourself over to the Discord if you're a brand new member. I don't know what they're alluding to here. I think like they're jibing McLaren for their double DNF at Las Vegas. Are they not? Interesting. Very, very interesting. Oh, and by the way, this has happened and this is where it's chaos. I've got to set the scene actually before we go into these slides, because this is chaos, chat. Forgive me, Lord, for I'm about to go full scorched earth settings. Lest we forget, Zach Brown has been talking, right? For the past couple of weeks, he's been on something of a PR tour, trying to make out like he's holier than thou. like he's invested only in fairness and the rules of engagement. Papaya rules of engagement all season long. They've been barking up this tree, and I don't think it makes sense. Listen, Hanlon's razor dictates that you should never attribute to malice that which you can attribute to stupidity. However, what if it's both? What if Zak Brown and Stella are both stupid and malicious? What if, here's what I mean by that. Maybe they know what they want here, that in Lando winning a World Drivers' Championship, there is greater commercial upside. He's the one that has that glint in his eye, the cheeky smile. Men want to be him. Women want to be with him. Don't believe me? Well, every single time you see a commercial venture, an advertisement, which one of the McLaren drivers is on it front and centre? Hilton, Lando Norris. Ralph Lauren, Lando Norris. Air Wallets, Lando Norris. Monster, Lando Norris. Each and every single time, Lando Norris is the front man. He's the one that they're invested in. Why? Well, because Zak Brown is a god-tier commercial mind, and in a Lando Norris World Drivers' Championship maiden one, there is more upside. A rising Lando Norris floats all F1 and McLaren boats. They are invested in him, therefore. Don't believe me? Well, we're not having the... There is a difference between mens rea and actus reus. One is motivation and one is acting upon said motivation. I'm not saying that they've done anything. Great extraordinary claims per Sagan standard requires extraordinary evidence. It would be disingenuous of me to make such a foolhardy, churlish argument. But if you know that Zak Brown is already a business affiliate of Lando Norris, that he left as quadrant director per Company's House only as at July this year, that 7 years is how long Lando's been at that team, that he is their prodigal son. It gives you some colour and context, some background when you realise that Australian Grand Prix this year, when Oscar Piastri was on a charge on the gearbox of his old mate Lando Norris, and they told him to cool off. Chill out, mate, changeable conditions. You got Max Verstappen behind you. Call this off. You do not, Oscar Piastri, attack your teammate Lando Norris. Lest we forget, British Grand Prix of this year, Oscar Piastri again gets a cheeky penalty. Some said harsh. What happened to fair a level playing field, McLaren? What happened to intervening when the consensus is that one of your drivers had been treated unfairly? Well, you didn't do it then, only to then at Monza intervene ad nauseum. Lest we forget, 5.9 second pit stop from Lando Norris. What did McLaren do then? Invert positions, Oscar Piastri. Oscar's like, what's going on here? This is absolutely ridiculous. We said that slow pit stops were part of motor racing. You recall Max Verstappen's reaction then. He was like, what? He looked in his mirror, was like, they've inverted. What, because of a slow pit stop? Ha ha ha. This makes no sense. What are McLaren doing? Is this United Colours of Benetton? Make it make sense, or are we in F1 where every millisecond counts, a story told in tense? I would argue more the latter than the former. Zak Brown apparently would not, though beg to differ. He went on another podcast, didn't he? Old Zak Brown, CEO, commercial, god-tier mind of McLaren. He went on another podcast and he said a couple of different other things. He said that 2007, he's well aware of what happened between Lewis and Alonso. Then Lewis and Fernando spent all season long taking significant material bites out of each other's points haul in the drivers. Suffice to allow Kimi Raikkonen to come in the mat door in a Scuderia Ferrari and win his one and only championship of his career. That was 2007. Referring to that, Zak Brown said, you know what, if I'm honest, I would rather critically aware am I of 2007 and the repercussions. Again, McLaren, then Lewis and Alonso. That whilst I'm acutely aware of the circumstances and downside ramifications of dilly-dallying around and having, in inverted commas, two number one drivers, I would rather lose the championship than play favourites. Zak Brown's words, chat, not mine. You cannot believe it. You couldn't write this in a book. In F1, That's how we're talking. This is not the United Colours of Benetton. This is not some sort of philanthropic, altruistic venture. This makes no sense, Zach Brown. Some would say that there is no place for this type of nonsense and shenanigans in the weird and wacky world that is F1. And then Oscar Piastri said, well, they weren't going to play favourites, yeah? Remember, I just said, that's Zach Brown's words, not mine. They said that they would rather lose than play favourites. Some will say that, listen, at this point, you've got to play favourites because what you don't want to do is have 2007 happen again. Spend too long dilly-dallying around and allow a Maximilian Verstappen of a fire-breathing dragon to creep in the Drivers' Championship back door. Well, here's what Oscar said. And this is where it gets chaos. Sometimes we've got to pull up some hypocritical threads. I can't even, these papaya rules says, it's techie. Listen, here's what Oscar Piastri said over the course. Pre-race, Qatar Grand Prix, round 23 of 24. Oscar said, we've had a very brief discussion on it. And the answer is no. When Oscar Piastri refers to on it, he's talking about favouritism, him yielding for Lando Norris, who's currently 24 points down the road in the Drivers' Championship. What? How? What? Explain. Help me understand this, chat. Zach Brown only last week was talking about, oh no, rules of engagement. There's a way we go racing. Both of these drivers deserve to compete for a championship and there's no way we'd want to intervene. Well, how about Monza and how about Silverstone and how about Australia as the exhibits A, B and C? You intervened then, didn't you? Well, no, we're not going to intervene. And now Oscar Piastri has come out before the world's press and media and said that they had a conversation about it. Make this make sense. Square this circle, chat. This makes no sense. Somebody's been disingenuous here because if what Zach Brown said was true, that conversation doesn't happen. Chat. Why are they asking Oscar Piastri? What is there to even talk about? Oscar Piastri said no when he was asked, would he yield to bend the knee to Lando Norris at the altar of his Drivers' Championship, maiden Drivers' Championship. I'm still, quote, equal on points with Max and got a decent shot of still winning if things go my way. I tell you why my heart bleeds for Oscar Piastri. Earlier on in the season when I said, you know what, we've got this new suspension. We're going to put it on Lando's car so that the car handles more to his liking. Dial out some of the understeer. Give him the feedback through the steering wheel that he so needs and deserves. Do you want it, Oscar? Oscar said, you know what, mate, if it's not a proper upgrade, if you're just making the car easier for Lando to drive, then I thought, you know what, I don't need that. And then we get to the low grip circuits of Mexico and all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, Oscar, you should have had the upgrade, sir. You should have had the upgrade. And then Oscar Piastri's putting on Instagram the quotes, a pictorial of Bernie Ecclestone talking about, of course, McLaren are going to favour the one that they call Lando Norris. British bias. Oscar's mentality has been systematically destroyed. At this juncture, how could I disagree too much? Like, how very dare they sit this chap in a room and even suggest it as an idea after all that they've said. False seeming of the Shakespearean variety. This isn't on. It's the fact that they let Max come even this close. Holy stone. WDC could have been dealt with races ago. We said it, didn't we, John? And again, I don't want to pat myself on the back or anything, but the racing gods, if past is prologue, will not look too kindly on the extent and frequency with which McLaren have intervened, put their thumb on the weighing scales of the competitive landscape of the Drivers' Championship in 2024. I tell you what, it's techie. Read that again. Oscar Piastri's like, no, I said no. Said no to what? To which Maximilian Verstappen, as he did very famously in Monza, is laughing at them. It's like you think you wouldn't dare do that to me. Can you imagine Zach Brown telling Max Verstappen, hang on one sec, Max, Lando's struggling to get into Q3. Do you mind giving him a tow? He made a cheeky mistake at turn 3 through turn 4. Max, do you mind slowing up and giving your teammate and only rival proper for the championship at this stage in the season? Do you mind giving him a tow into turn 3? Scorched earth. Max would turn full Terminator then. He'd be like, what are you talking about? Well, Max has told us. Then in Monza, he was laughing at them, saying, listen, are they inverting positions just for a 5.9 second pit stop? What is this? Are they United colours of Benetton, or are we racing here? Because McLaren don't look like they are. They don't look like they are, or they don't move like they are, at least. Then at Monza Grand Prix, the Italian Grand Prix, excuse me, Maximilian Verstappen was laughing at McLaren. Now he had this to say. And this is where it gets sticky, courtesy again of our mates over at the race. Here's what Maximilian Verstappen had to say about this chaos papaya rule settings. He said, I mean, if it were me, I would have not rocked up. I would have told them to F off the humanity. And I've got the full quote here. When asked about the McLaren circumstance, Max said, quote, "It's perfect. I think you can't do a better job than allowing them to race as well, because why would you suddenly now say that Oscar Piastri wouldn't be allowed anymore? If that was me, I would not have rocked up. I would have told them to F off." So yeah, if you're a real winner in the race as a driver, then you go for it, even if you're behind. Oh, the humanity. This is full multi-21 settings, isn't it? From Max Verstappen. Because why? Because he wants to win. There is nothing at which he will not stop to get himself 25 points. And I think that's how it should be. Love it or loathe it. You can't hate that resilience and determination to win at all costs. Why? Because that's F1. That is F1. Max Verstappen continues, quote, "What's the point otherwise turning up? What's the point otherwise in turning up?" And herein lies the problem with McLaren in trying to manage and micromanage even their PR and talk ad nauseum about papaya rules and rules of engagement, United colours of Benetton, kumbaya, hugs and kisses, you get a prize and you get a prize. In doing that, they've disenfranchised so many millions of F1 fans around the world because this looks and feels and smells fishy. This is why at the Mexican Grand Prix, when Lando Norris post-race was saying that I don't know why they're booing. I don't know why they're booing, but it doesn't matter to me. I move on. I continue. I like sour sweets, quipped Lando Norris then, to which a Mexican gangster of a journalist said, "I can tell you why they're booing. They're booing because of Monza. Are you going to give back them points that McLaren gave you back to Oscar Piastri? That's why they're booing." There was a survey conducted in which many Mexican fans feel like you're being gifted the championship by your old mate, business affiliate, team principal, CEO, the one that they call Zach Brown. What's the point otherwise in even turning up, says Maximilian Verstappen. Chaos. Otherwise you just call yourself a number 2 driver, which I think Oscar Piastri doesn't want to be. Then for me, I know that I'm equal on points with Oscar Piastri. Like I said before, a lot still needs to go right, but I think it should be like that. They are free to race, and hopefully we can make it a great battle until the end. Oh, the humanity. Chaos from Maximilian Verstappen and chaos from the Drivers' Championship of 2025. How do you like yourself some F1 chat? Brilliant time to be an F1 fan. Not quite peak F1, but very, very nearly. Di Loro. Indeed, America. Happy Thanksgiving, by the way, to those of you that are celebrating. If Piastri can't win, I hope Maximilian Verstappen wins it. And this is the problem for McLaren. They've been too anal about micromanaging their PR and doing this false seeming of Shakespearean proportions. It's not, F1 is not a team sport. Well, it is, Unav. This is the dichotomy. F1 is now and has always been a team sport, but as far as the drivers are concerned, tell that to a Max Verstappen. You remember when they asked Max Verstappen to yield position to Sergio Checo Perez at the Brazilian Grand Prix in 2023? I don't think so, mate. What are you doing? No, don't ask me to do that again, Max Verstappen said. I told you already in the summer when Checo Perez yeeted it into the barrier deliberately to get himself a cheeky P1 at the Monaco Grand Prix. Told you already, don't even ask me that again. I'm not yielding to Checo Perez. He will never beat me again. Not now. Not ever. Shout out to Sebastian Vettel for raising it 100%. You make a point there. Sebastian, of course, gave an interview where he talked about deforestation. He's overly invested now. He's just in sustainability. Is Sebastian Vettel. Once upon a time, let me tell you a secret, much. Once upon a time, I reached out to Sebastian Vettel to have him to get a cheeky interview, and I was turned away out of hand At some point, maybe we get Sebastian. Maybe we'll get Sebastian back on, but I feel like the balance of negotiating power has shifted ever so slightly between now and then. If Max is not going to win, I want Piastri. I don't hate it, Khalid. I don't hate it because he's a racing man's racer, right? There is this, and you know what? I don't agree necessarily. I think Lando's hard earned everything, especially in the second half. Oscar Piastri was the man of the hour in the first half of the season, but since then, you guys know the statistics already. Is it 5 Grand Prix wins and 4 poles from the first 9? And then from the subsequent 13 or whatever, struggled, or 12, struggling, 13 even, struggling, what is it, 2 poles, 1 win, something. He's not done when the trend is when the trend is your friend, excuse me, until there is a bend. It's techie. It is techie. Lando earned nothing. That's the issue. That's the perception. And perception sometimes in F1, Francis, is reality. He'll do all right. He'll have the car this weekend and it's medium speed, the natural habitat of the McLaren. We'll preview everything tomorrow morning first thing. I think Lando should do well. But, yeah, and still, Maximilian Verstappen is the favourite to win the Qatar Grand Prix. Not the championship, but round 23 at Qatar. By dint of the fact that the bookmakers think run a simulation of the Qatar Grand Prix round 23 100 times and Maximilian Verstappen takes it 40% of the time. They say Lando Norris 33.3% recurring. All of us behind you, Cameron, for asking. What you ask is what we want to know. Edgar, we'll get there at some point. We'll have Sebastian on. I'll ask him. Well, to be fair, he's come out and he's been quite honest about Lewis Hamilton and his genius, right? But I remember at the time, I thought that here it is. We'll end on this bombshell. The comparisons and parallels between Sebastian Vettel as a fast car merchant, as an Adrian Newey beneficiary between 2010 and 2013, between him then and Lando Norris now, there are parallels, a multitude of them. Fast car privilege, fast car merchant, wasting it away as near as makes no difference. It's going to get techie than techie things, chat, over the course of round 23, the penultimate race of the Drivers' Championship 2025. How do you like yourself some F1?